Okay, well, let's talk about that. Our engineers are having a bit of fun with all of this. At any rate, so what we're saying here is what is happening with the movement of what's going on in the Gulf, and what do you think? Where do you think public opinion is being swayed, and are you picking up these trails? Because obviously, this person we're not naming so that we don't get thrown up on charges of any kind is putting out.
That's helpful.
Well, boy, when I asked you guys to join me today, did you have any idea we were going to come on this level of a discussion? Boy,
I love it.
You've got me out there further than I want to be, but hey, keep going.
Now's the time, right?
I guess.
Well, I don't know. We have an ELE, extinction level event happening in the Gulf, and we've got people that are trying to sway public opinion. And what happens is the ETs use this opinion, you see, because if you got, and this is what I wrote in my blog, and this is what somebody was talking to me about, was saying that the information that they have, that they're getting, is that the positive ETs, if we get all the positive people out there, and they're asking for something that ultimately is not in their best interest, but they're asking for it anyway, they're going to be powerless to step in and say, and change your mind. In other words, they're going to step aside and let you go for it. Wow. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
And this is how the negative side uses the positive side against them.
So it's the old adage, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Exactly. And these people are not educated, and they don't understand what's really going on, and they are being manipulated. So that's where we're at with this, and that's why this is a really important subject, even though it might appear that we're having a good time over here.
Well, we can still enjoy each other's company, right?
I think that's still allowed. I don't think there's a law against it yet.
I hope not. Well, I think that's a huge point right there, though, Carrie. That's kind of the way that it, if you start compiling the information that's been compiled by everyone that's been compiling it, that's been bringing it out in the open, and absolutely when they start, if you will, shoving this information out into the mainstream, and you've got all of these people that are taking their take on it verbally, as well as in the media, print and news and all of that. And then you start coming up with people that are saying, oh, here we have this solution, we have that solution. What do people want? They want it to be fixed. They want it to be right. And they don't stop to think about the path to the correction is actually in opposition of what they want. They're not thinking. They're simply being reactionary to a situation. That's what gets people into trouble. Not using that discernment. We kind of touched on that last night.
Let's look at it from an intelligence viewpoint then. The information that she got, okay? Let's look at this from the standpoint of, is it 10% accurate? Is it 50% accurate? Is it 90% accurate? And usually you can't even begin to validate that percentage or even have 10% without 3. If you don't have 3, you have a rumor. If it's an important topic, you pursue it.
Hold on one second. Okay, I've got somebody saying out there that there is no sound going out over the airwaves here. So I'm going to ask our technician Hans if he can verify that we are being heard and recorded. Okay, they're going to check on that because obviously we're having a very important discussion here, and I've got a friend listening who's telling me that we have gone off the air.
Oh, no, that's just amazing.
So that tells you right there that we're hitting a soft spot here.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we were taken down off the air about 2-3 weeks ago completely. And so, they're on to Argusoog. So, radio is still running. Keep going, he says. Keep going.
Well, any rate, what we're going to do is we're putting this out. And the people that are really going to listen are the ones that are going to sign on later.
Right, and I do want to.
My friend says the radio station is dead.
Oh no. Well, I'm also recording it from the other end of my stream over here too, Carrie. So if we would have this available as well if they've lost that part of it. So just to let you know.
And it may be their end. It could be their end, not just the radio. So.
Right.
Okay. All right. So at any rate, let's get back to the point. So Waterman, you were talking in regard to what Rebecca had said, and let's move along that line.
Well, we were talking about, what's the likelihood of this? What's the ability of it being 10%? I mean, if we're talking about one of those, 10 doors, and you're going to die, if one of the out of 10 is possible, do you think that this event has a 1 out of 10 possibility in general? Well, we can actually tear this event down into parts and start getting some kind of indications. For example, are we talking about an area of the planet that is unstable? I think the likelihood of that being the case has been verified enough times from different sources that you could put that at a high possibility, right? So we are talking about the crust and the area of that area of the planet down there on the side of this huge cliff in this area. And by the way, some of the best maps that I have seen are on globalresearch.ca for this mapping of this area. So if it's extremely unstable, that's one important factor in evaluating what might and could happen here. The other stuff that we have, let's take one that's a little bit more difficult to comprehend because they've been maybe potentially covering up something for a long time. Golly, would we be lied to? Well, that might be that we have something called peak oil that actually played in the hands of one of those groups that we were talking about before, just like the Patriot Group, just like the left-wing groups, just like race groups. And here we have maybe a radical ecological group that wanted to have peak oil because it's passionately driving some reason for them to be radical about it. It gives them a reason to be radical. Well, they know that, so they enhance that, but it plays also into the roles of other things that makes it really good for the oil industry, like raising the price because there's not very much of it. Well, if that's not true, then we have a biotic process in place deep inside the earth. And we've not been drilling deep into the earth to get oil, but have been just getting little sidelines of it in the past. And now Russia has drilled over 300 wells at 30,000 plus feet in order to get in what you might call the main biotic production areas of the planet for oil. Then we have a whole nother story about what they might have drilled into and what regards there are to its reaction. And you have a lot of impact there with not knowing, a lot of us still that are watching this thinking that it is a problem or thinking there's something called peak oil. Now, that's changed with biotic oil. Biotic oil is coming from a very, very deep part of the earth. Well, I consider 30,000 feet isn't all that deep on the planet, right? But it's deep. Well, anyway, that's what's going on with this drilling. How important is that information being hidden about whether it's peak or not playing on this event? It's important. I think it's critically important because if you think there's a biotic process and it's deep within inside the earth, then what kind of process is it that creates the oil? It has to be very energetic, doesn't it? If you've poked into a very energetic area, you could likely have things go wrong with you with the process. because there's a lot of more pressure possibly. Maybe there's some fire there. Maybe there is reactions we don't understand